Welcome to the Building Pathways to Healthy Minds podcast, where we share real world strategies to nurture children as they grow. I'm your host, Priscilla, and today I sit down with a very special guest, Liz Palmer, who is part of the ChildBuilders board and just a wonderful mom. Sat down and we talked about how we get to be working parents and make all of those things happen all at once in a very busy world. Liz is an avid learner. She's amassed 4 graduate level degrees, which is super impressive while being a parent. She is now the executive director at the Texas Wine School. It is a nonprofit, and she is also the managing partner in the Art of Cellaring, a wine storage community, and AOC Selections, a retail wine shop. She talked about how even in those busy seasons with young children, how we can still make time to listen, creating those spaces, even if they're short amounts of time, that we can sit and we can listen and connect with our children. How even as they've grown older, they still hold space for each other. And how her boys know they are a team. And what a team mentality does is create a family that is there for each other, even when things are tough. So I hope you enjoy this podcast. It was lovely speaking to Liz. She is a great mom, a great friend, and I hope you enjoy the show. Hi, Liz. We're so excited to have you today.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me.
So I would love to hear more about you because we get to do Child Builder events. You're on our board at Child Builders, and so we get to talk a little bit here and there. But I really don't know a whole lot of your story, like how you found out about Child Builders, what led you to care so much about Child Builders. And so would you give a little bit of background about yourself?
And I was really drawn to Child Builders, partially because it involves kids and I have my own kids. And so that was near and dear to my heart. But I also really love the approach that it's a sustainable model. It's not just feeding kids for one day. It's helping them grow and change and hopefully eventually break the cycle of violence. So I think a lot of different people, different foundations don't prioritize giving to those prevention because it's hard to then turn around and say, look at all these things that we've done. We've prevented this abuse. It's really hard to measure, but it's really
so
important.
So the immediate question when I was thinking about talking to you was, because you have 2 boys that are now in college. So thinking about, you were very busy, very accomplished, and had, I know wonderful different careers and different things you were doing. So I think the question that I kept thinking was, in the thick of things, because I have an 8-year-old, right? So that those moments where they're in school and they're needing homework and they're rushing around and you're rushing around. So busy, we're all busy. You were very busy, working, having kids, being a president, a PTO. How did you manage that? How did you make the time and space to parent in those moments?
Yeah. The good and the bad news, I do think it was really helpful that I had some flexibility in my work, that I could be on call if the kid gets sick, especially in those early years. Probably by 8, they're not getting sick quite as often. But just having the flexibility to say, you know what, today I need to go do this. I need to watch their performance. So that was really, really helpful. But aside from that, it's, I don't know, deliberate times. We tried to do dinner together as a family. It wasn't every day at all, but it was sort of the norm. If you're home and one of us we're going to eat together, we're not eating in front of the TV, and we're going to talk. And I always wanted them to talk about themselves and their day and their experiences, but probably half the time they had nothing to say. So we would talk, right? And we would share, gosh, this was a problem I came across today, or this was really frustrating, or this was amazing. But just start having these conversations. So that was great.
Did that change? Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
I was gonna say, as they got older, we still did the dinners, but I learned to love riding in the car with them, especially by the time they moved up to the front seat, which my children didn't do until
high school or
probably high school. Sitting together side by side, facing the same direction, so you're not looking at each other, was a really interesting way to have some conversations. It's sometimes easier to have tough conversations if you're not actually looking at each other. And I think
Yes.
there's something about this sitting side by side that that feels like you're a team, you're facing something together. And so we didn't do a lot of carpooling. And I very much tried to make sure that in my schedule, I could drop the kids off or pick them up as often as I could.
That's a great thought because you knew, we maybe don't have a ton of just empty spaces, but we do have this drive. And this is a place where we connect. So let's protect that as
Yeah.
best as we can. Protect the spaces that you do have and that your
Yes.
kids are thriving in. I've heard that a couple times from different parents, like the riding in the car or sitting on a swing, like a porch swing.
Yeah.
You're almost like you're not looking at each other, but you're side by side and you're just kind of together in that moment. That kids talk a little bit more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And somehow I talk a little bit. It's just easier to ask the weird questions. This past spring break, my youngest is a freshman in college and he's in DC, and he came home and we knew before he got home that he hadn't been feeling well. So he was sick and cold, cough, whatever, wanted to lay around a lot, but several days in, he's still not feeling great. He's not himself. He's not chipper. And it wasn't until like we got in the car that I was like, hey, how's everything going? Like, how are you feeling? And how does how are you doing emotionally about it? And being able to ask those questions. I just wanted to make sure that it wasn't depression
Something going
and
on.
sickness. But he was like, no, I wish I could get up. There's lots of things I want to do, but I just don't quite have the energy. And I'm like, okay, that's great. But then so much peace of mind for me to know that it wasn't obviously a depression thing,
Mhm.
but that's somehow harder to ask when you just walk in and they're playing a video game.
Totally. It's like
Yeah.
creating that space
Yeah.
for connection
Yeah.
that's kind of like turning everything off and just being together.
Yeah.
I really like that. And I really like that it sounds like you're saying is creating those check-in times with your kids. You may not have 2 hours again,
Yeah.
you know,
You don't need 2 hours.
right.
They don't want you to give them 2 hours.
So true. Yeah. But just hey, how are you emotionally?
Yeah.
This is what I'm noticing or seeing. Is this, what's going on? I am looking forward to the days where my daughter can sit up front and we can talk. Because right now it's so hard to turn back and
It's hard.
it,
And sometimes you just want music or something more
yeah,
fun. And yeah.
yeah, yeah. And I'm still looking for that space with her because she's not a jump in the car and tell me everything,
Right.
kind of kid. And so we too try to do dinners together. When you were saying that, I thought of some strategies that friends of ours have used. They've used like the high, low. What was the best part of your day?
Yes.
What was the worst part? So giving direct questions
Yes.
can sometimes, and we just visited friends in Colombia and they did that. And my daughter was like, she came home, she's like, we got to do the high lows,
Oh, that's great. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. You come up with just, I don't know, 5, 8 questions and you just kind of cycle through them. You might not ask the high low every day at dinner.
exactly.
And then sometimes they don't want to say a thing, but you share your own, or you
Right.
share just something like, here was
Something,
a problem I faced, and here's how I solved it, but maybe I should have done something different. Just let them hear us talk out our problems, admit that we have them, that life is hard, mistakes are made. We're just moving forward.
absolutely. I mean, that's modeling that like healthy, healthy emotional management and healthy parenting for them one day. They can say, oh, I loved family dinners. I want to do that too.
Yeah. Yeah.
So a couple weeks ago, we had our first podcast was over creating nurturing homes. And one of the things we talked about and ChildBuilders is very, very passionate about is creating empathy, instilling that in our children, teaching them what that is. And it can be taught, even though, you know, Sometimes
Yeah,
we think you either have empathy or you don't. No, you can teach it, you can become better at it, but there are some enemies in our of empathy and connection in our lives. We talked about we're busy, we're all
busy.
those things. So, what were some of those when you were a parent? What did you find kind of stole those moments sometimes?
I think it's always the busyness. There was a stage, they were probably 10, 12-ish when I was starting my own business. And I felt like I had to answer every single phone call and be available for customers to give them a good experience. So we would get more and more customers. Um, but it could also be, I've got to drive them to soccer practice, or I have to, like, there's just this busyness that would take you away. I do think that somewhere in the midst of all of it, it is good to have some me time, like adult time. Like if there is a point where it's nice to have separation, whether it's if you're stay at home in the middle of the day, like carve off a block, just to be in touch with your own feelings and remind yourself of the bigger perspective, what's important and what's not important. And yeah, understanding your own feelings so that then you can relate to theirs. I also think it snowballs. You get a little bit busy, and so you step away a little bit from that emotional connection with the child. And if it keeps going, that's a problem. Like you do need to see that and stop it and be like, okay, it's fine that for a day or two we didn't do this, but we got to get right back to it. Yeah.
I often feel as a mom too, and working, trying to be present, be mom, be wife, be working hard. These things start building up inside of us, and I constantly feel this like I'm on edge.
Yes. Yes.
There's no room here, you
Yes.
know. And so did you have any? I feel like you managed that well, even starting a business. I mean, I can't even imagine how stressed you often
Yeah.
were.
Yeah.
How did that come out in your parenting, or how did you kind of overcome that in parenting?
I do have a very supportive spouse,
Mm,
which was
it's
great.
so helpful.
And because my kids were a little bit older, there was an element of this is a family business. Y'all are
Yeah.
doing this too. So there were tasks that would need to get done. And I made the children help me, even though they didn't want to.
Did you have any really
Strategy.
great stress management, or what kind of kept you grounded in those moments?
My faith. I
Okay.
am I am a Christian and I try and lean into that. Um, it's really helpful in guiding decisions, but even if someone doesn't have faith, I think just this attitude of gratitude, right? Look around
Mm,
the world around you, and there's so many things that could go wrong. And yes, I'm flustered and I'm busy right now. And it's okay to feel stressed and busy, but in the scheme of things, I've got it good. And the most important thing in my life, the only legacy really that I would ever leave is through children, right?
mm,
So they are important and it's worth
yeah.
finding the time to connect or reconnect with them.
I feel like through that whole conversation, I felt you saying too, those supports, the things you lean on are so important. So if you have a spouse that you can lean on, if you have faith, because I know I'm the same. There are moments where I just have to go, away and pray for a second and just be like, I
Yeah,
don't know what to do. Um, but it's important for us to find that in our lives, whatever that thing is that brings us strength in the midst of our weak times. It's important we recognize that. I think keep that close, keep ourselves, um, have that be something we cultivate.
yeah.
You know,
And some of it's through friendships, right? Like just other
right.
things that are important. Friendships are great. Keeping in mind though that there's some friends who it's super fun to go out with. There's some friends that are going to be a little bit more helpful in boosting you up when you need some emotional support.
Absolutely. We all need that in life. Just parenting alone can be, it's just, I don't know. That's just really, really hard.
It really does take a village.
Yes.
You got to have lots of strong, good people pitching
Finding your
in.
your people, your community, leaning into faith to family. It's just, yeah,
Yeah.
hugely that those are the things that keep you grounded, I think,
Yep.
midst of busyness for sure. So what were some of your favorite, just we're talking healthy parenting today. So maybe some strategies you used with your boys through the years, or maybe we talked about connection and those kinds of things. What are some other ways that you kind of tried to have healthy parenting kind of in the forefront of your family and your mind?
One of the things that I didn't think explicitly about when my kids were young, but certainly by the time they were adolescents, I had fully understood it, is that a family is a lot like a team.
Mm.
We're on a team together. And so we would use some of that language, right? You're going to come home and you might have something to tell me that you wish you didn't have to tell me. But my response is always going to be, we're in this together. Like, what do we need to do to fix it? And it was them, they needed to fix it. But we are here to support and give you the ideas and help you get through it.
One, important for us as parents to sometimes put the shock or the anxiety to the side when our kids tell us things. And I love that you mentioned be a team. You have a team mentality. Like, we are here for you. Chris is my husband. His grandfather would say, I'm for you,"
Yeah.
which I love that. Like, no matter what, I'm for you. I'm for you.
Yeah.
So you may say something that's hard or disappointing or whatever, but we're here for you. We're a team. We're
Yeah.
going to work through it together. Um,
Yeah, and maybe you really messed up.
right,
And we
right.
really have to fix this. But
But we're
yeah,
not going to leave you out to dry,
right.
you know.
Yeah, there was a period of time where I was wrestling with myself, like, what is it that I most want for my children?
Mm-hmm.
And the answer that I came up with was, I want them to have choices.
Mm.
I don't want them to, you know, be happy or anything. Like, they can find happiness if they have choices to make and to understand that they can choose and that it will have an impact. And if they're unhappy or they don't like something, you don't have to be there.
You can change it.
You can change.
You can change your story.
Yeah.
So did you, as a teenage mom, when they were teenagers, did you consciously make decisions like, I'm gonna have to let them fail? I'm gonna have to let them see that their choices matter. How did you navigate that?
Well, you do.
It's a very hard
What was
thing.
was it Love and Logic? There was something that was like natural consequences, right?
Yep.
So
Yep.
you're just going to let the natural consequences happen. Bless his heart, my oldest son, we let the consequences happen. He didn't care. There was literally nothing that would make him care. And I think it's because he did know that he was loved and we were never gonna completely give up on him and stuff. But you threaten, the grounding, the taking the electronics away, all of the things. And yeah, he just didn't care. You can't give up on him.
Yeah.
So you stay with it. So yeah, for sure you let them not turn in homework assignments, but you also try to figure out what's the problem? Why is this so hard? Can we find a system that helps make sure that get it done? And
It's
they
that like
do.
connection again,
Yeah.
creating spaces to say, we're on the same team. And here's a time in our day that we're connecting with you and finding out what's going on. So maybe we can help solve some of those
And,
things.
and to be solutions oriented and not always just focus on, you did this wrong. I can't believe it. This was stupid. None of that. Just say, wow, we got to do that differently now. What
Yeah.
are we going to do? I do that with my employees too. We're not blaming each other. We're not going down those roads. We're going to fix it. What do we need to do going forward? I was at the dentist this week getting my teeth cleaned, and the hygienist was a temp, so I didn't know her, and she wasn't. I won't see her again. But she had little kids, and was stressed about it and said something about yelling. And I was like, you know what? When my children were little, I would get very frustrated. I yelled at my kids. I did.
Mm-hmm.
But if you ask them now, they don't remember that I yelled at them. They don't remember that at all. So it's also okay for parents to make the occasional mistake.
Yes.
It's a marathon. So correct
I
it,
love
see that it was a mistake, figure out how to make it better.
I love that you said that as a parent of a younger child, because I will be so in my head sometimes and like try so hard, because I do these webinars. I
Yeah.
should know all these things. I even say that on the webinars, like, guys, I'm reminded every time I do an empathy webinar or a training, how to cultivate healthy homes, that I'm forgetting these things and I need them constantly to be reminded.
And
Yeah.
then, and I think it's also okay, needed, good to let your kids know, oh my gosh, I shouldn't have yelled. I'm
Yes.
sorry. Yeah.
There's always space for that repair,
Yeah. Yeah.
repairing, connecting again, starting
And
again.
demonstrating to them that it's okay. You should do that. You should apologize sometime.
Yes. If there was one thing to kind of summarize, wrap up what we talked about today that you would want to say one more time to parents, what would it be?
Maybe respect them as people
Mm.
as well. You're their teammate, but they're your teammate. I think that can give you also a little bit of perspective that it's worth putting time into them and energy into them, and take the time to explain why we need to do something differently, and yeah,
And why we need each other.
why we need each other. Kind of treat them in your conversation a little more like adults than you otherwise want to.
Thank you. Thank you for taking the time out with me today. I really
Yeah, for
enjoyed it.
sure. Thanks for asking.
I hope you enjoyed that wonderful conversation with Liz, where we talked about creating a team atmosphere in our homes, how we can repair when we mess up, even as parents, and how we show that to our children, and how creating space for connection, even if it's something like dinner, asking specific questions and strategies that Liz shared, that we can create a nurturing environment and healthy kids by doing some of those things. I hope that you enjoyed today's podcast. As always, we would love comments or questions. And please visit us on childbuilders.org for more resources on healthy parenting and how to create connections with your children. Until next time, I'm Priscilla Bagley. I hope that you have a lovely day. Grab some coffee or some tea and enjoy the moments. And until next time, stand strong, stay safe.